Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be pruning up my larch forest. I repotted this forest this spring and it sure liked the repotting. It's grown with a ton of vigor, so today I'll prune it back. Here is a look at the forest. So up top where all the vigor is in the trees, the shoots are really strong. They're already starting to grow branches on them. Super strong in the apex. As you go down the tree, the shoots are still nice and healthy and vigorous, but not as strong as on top of the tree. And then underneath the forest, there's a whole ecosystem that's developed in here. The mosses and lichens, and yeah, it's really cool under the forest here. Yeah, so I have a lot of pruning to do today. Everything is totally overgrown. I'm going to begin the pruning now. So I'll start in the apex of the trees and work my way down. And I'll try and prune it as tight as I can, leaving a bit of the new growth on each of the branches. It'll be a big job. It'll probably take me all day today, but here I go. I'm going to start with the tallest tree in the forest, and on these new shoots I can see all kinds of buds on them. I'll show you a close-up of it. Here is a look at the vertical shoot on the apex here, and you can see right down here there's buds all over it. Basically at the base of each needle is a potential bud, so I can prune the apex back really hard. And as I go down the trees, I'll be doing less and less pruning. And I'll try and maintain the conical form of each of the trees and trying to create space between the trees. So it's going to be quite a pruning today. All right, here I go, starting the pruning. So I'll come up to my apex shoot, prune it back nice and hard, pruning between the needles, taking the top off. And then all these branches need to get pruned back hard. So I'm just leaving about, I don't know, 4 or 5 millimeters of growth on the trees. About a 1/4 inch, somewhere around there. And you can always prune them a little long and then come back and shorten them once you can see more of the form of the trees. You can do the pruning in stages. And I'll have to do some needle thinning. The needles are really long, and they always are with the first flush of growth. Then the second flush of growth is less vigorous and the needles are shorter. And then the third or fourth flush of growth, the needles get even smaller. So by fall, I'm hoping that it's looking good enough to show the tree, show the forest in a fall show. So that's my goal. Whenever you repot a tree, usually you get a ton of vigor the first season because the roots have room to grow. It's not, the roots aren't confined in the pot. So if you're going to show a tree, it's very difficult to show them the year they're repotted. It's better to wait until the second year when the growth slows down a bit. So you can see after this pruning, they're still really fluffy. So I'll have to do some needle thinning. I like to let the first flush of growth kind of flush out like this. If you're plucking them constantly, they tend to lose a bit of vigor. So it's nice to let them grow the first flush and then kind of keep the vigor in the tree, generate your second flush of growth. And yeah, if you're always pinching them, the vigor goes out of the trees and you get very weak growth, and it kind of it keeps them a little too weak sometimes. And you can get problems overwintering the trees if they're too weak. they just don't have as much cold protection. I'll continue working away, pruning all the new growth back on the trees, and then we'll come back for the needle thinning. I'm working my way around the back of the forest now. I still can't really see the trees. It's so bushy. I can kind of tell there's individual trees, but there's no separation, so I'll continue. I've got a few more shoots to prune back. Then we'll go back to the front and start kind of exposing the trees, needle thinning, trying to get them down so you can see the individual trees, not just a massive clump. It is the next day now. I finished pruning up the trees yesterday, reducing all the long branches back to little tiny branches. And then we had a huge thunderstorm in the afternoon, so I don't have to do any watering outside today. We got a lot of rain, about this much in my bucket, which is amazing. So today you can see the trees are still really fluffy looking. You can't really see the individual trees. It's just one big solid kind of green canopy. So I'm going to be plucking needles today. I'll start by removing all the downward facing needles. That'll thin the trees out a bit more. And then I'll go in and reduce the needles even further so I can see each individual tree. Here's a look at the trees now. So you can kind of start to see a bit of the individual trees and sections. Back here it's pretty dense. So I'll start in the apex of each tree, needle plucking, reducing the density of the foliage up top. That'll give me more light down to the lower branches. Here's what I took off yesterday. So quite a bit. It's quite heavy. Yeah, so that'll go on the compost heap. Alright, I'm going to begin the needle thinning, so I just look at the lower needles and just pull them off. They come off quite easily when the shoots are tender and new like this. And the needles are really long right now. But as I said, with each flush of growth, the needles get smaller and smaller until the ones that come out in fall are really tiny and miniature, and they should look quite good. And you can safely reduce the density by half, and you can go further. Like in the apex here, I can reduce the needles even more, where all the vigor is. But after this operation, it still won't look small and miniature. The needles are still really long. But it helps get light into the buds. You'll get back budding. I think that's getting there. I think that's a good density. All the shoots have light. There's a few small shoots that I'm just going to pinch the tips out. I couldn't even see them before. Just pinching the very tip off them. So that's about as much as I'd want to do to the apex of this tree. And I'll do the same. I'll go down the branches and prune it up. And as I go down, there's less vigor, so I will be doing less needle thinning as I go down. So here I go. Yesterday I stopped in at the thrift store and I found a bonsai pot. It was $4.99 and it's an old pot. It's not a super high quality one, but it's old. You can tell by the color of the clay on the bottom. It's well aged and it's a nice pot. It has a really cool glaze on it. Yeah, I thought that was worth it. $4.99. Yeah, so I was happy to get that. Some lucky tree will go in that pot. I've been working away plucking out needles, so I have quite a pile already. You can see all the needles I've taken off, and this is just on the first tree. Found some debris in here. So as I'm clearing away the needles, you can see more and more of the structure of the tree. And I'm finding branches in here that I didn't prune that need pruning, so I've been doing that. Yeah, so it's coming along. I still have some work to go. I'm also finding that the trees beside this tree I'm working on, I have to do some needle thinning on that just so I can see where these branches end and the next tree begins, because it's, you know, very, very congested in here. But I can already see more light getting down to the forest floor. It's working, the needle thinning, getting the branches thinned out, so there's more light going to the lower branches. So I'll keep working away, making progress. Over here by the door, the cat snuck into the greenhouse and he's sleeping on top of my coat down there, and he's trying to be very quiet so I don't notice him. He's not even moving hardly. And he looks so happy, I guess I can leave him in here. He's not doing any harm. Over here on the forest, I've been working away on the main tree, needle thinning it, and it's coming along. You can actually see the branch structure now. So it's thinned out quite a bit. It takes quite a while. It's taken me over half an hour for just the one tree. And there's a lot of trees in the forest, so I'll continue working away. And this is the kind of task you don't have to finish in one day. You can just leave it on the bench here and tackle one or two trees when you get time. There's no hurry. So I'll work away. I think I'll be able to get it done today. There's still lots of daylight left. It's only kind of early to mid-afternoon, so I'll keep working away, needle thinning, and then we'll come back and see what progress I've made. And if you look at this stack of needles here, this is from the one tree. That's a lot. Wow. I have been working on the larch forest for a couple of hours now, and it's getting there. You can see all the trees now, some separation in the branches. Yeah, a lot of thinning. So here's what I took off. So just mounds of needles. I think I took off more from needle thinning than I did the actual pruning of the trees. Yeah, so the trees are looking much, much better. You can see light is getting down to the forest floor now through the trees. They were so dense before. So the next step is to, all these tips are pinched and they will ramify. So the next step is to wait for the next flush of growth, and when that comes out, all these old needles can be removed. And right now on the tree you can see there's two kinds of needles. There's some darker green ones, and that is the first, when the buds first opened up, there was like needles that came around the bud. And then as it starts elongating, you get these young kind of yellowish needles as the shoot extends, and then they harden off. I'm just going to pinch that one too. Yeah, so right now it's kind of a mix of needles. Some of the original ones from spring and then the ones on the new growth. So I guess you could call this, these extensions, I think you would still call it the first flush of growth, but maybe the second. Yeah, so that's the next step, is just to let the forest grow now, and it should fill in, and then I can start more needle removal and pinching. So that'll come, I think, in 2 to 3 weeks probably. They're pretty fast growers, these larch. Here's a look at the larch forest now. So the needles are still quite long and it's quite dense. I'm not worried about taking too many needles off. I'm more worried about, did I take enough off? I think it's a good amount. I think the trees will be healthy. They'll continue growing. Yeah, I think it's good. I can't rotate the forest. I don't have a bench big enough, and I don't have a turntable big enough. So yeah, I just have to be this static image for now. This spring I added 4 new trees to the forest, and they're all surviving. The ones at the back are a little weak because they get shaded out by the bigger trees, so I kind of pruned around them so they get light. And I put a lot of hours of work into the forest to get it to look like it does now from this big fluffy ball of foliage. And I'll have to do this 3, maybe 4 times over the summer, going through the trees, removing all the old needles, pinching the new growth. It'll be a lot of work, but the forests I find are always worth it. I really enjoy growing forests. And that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.